your family with that situation for you?
I think I'm really focused on what I can control right now. I'm not trying to get caught up in the what ifs. I think when it first started, all of us thought that this would be something that wasn't long lasting. Probably ignorance on our part that we have a quick fix to this like we do everything else. And once you realize that we're in this for the long haul, kind of settled in, got a routine. I have spent maybe more quality family time in the last month than I had in the last year and a half or 2 years even. And so it's been great to be around Sarah and my 3 sons and just doing everything I can, with the time I have to improve myself. Obviously I can't do a lot of the things I would have done with our guys, but, staying in touch with them, but taking advantage of the time, and I think leaning on Boo for what we can and can't do, and then, distributing that information to my staff. Personally, just spending family time, working out, reading, trying to stay on top of our recruiting with our recruiting staff and doing the things that I can from here.
Anybody else have a question?
I have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
Are you a part of the beard growing contest in the department?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a contest when it started. It was just kind of, obviously when you're in the office every day and you want to look professional and all those types of things, just never really had the opportunity to grow one. And I guess this is my way of stepping back and relaxing a little bit. But I will say that, 2 of our other coaches, wrestling and swimming, have beards and they won the ACC. So, maybe this is a good thing for me just to try to copy them.
Luke DeCock has a question.
Dave, I jumped on a hair late, so I'm sorry if you already answered this. In your mind, what's the shortest possible preseason ramp up that you could do to get your team ready for a season? Like, what if you were asked to get ready in a compressed time frame? What's the minimum amount you think you could safely get a team ready to play?
Yeah. It's hard to answer that because the longer you're away, the more you think about what that window should look like. We've talked about it. The ACC coaches had a long meeting last week and putting together various scenarios, a 6-week scenario, a 5-week scenario, and a 4-week scenario. I do think you could do it in 4 weeks. Obviously 6 would be better, but I do think you can do it. And what we're allowed to do, within training camp, will have to be different as well. And I think there's going to have to be a lot of really smart communication. Back in the day, as you guys remember, when we had 2-a-days before players ever stayed on campuses in the summer, guys would come back in August and you'd play in September. And that's how it was when I was a player. It's how it was when I was a younger coach, and you got the guys ready. And obviously that was back when you had 2-a-days, sometimes 3-a-days even. Times have changed a ton since that, obviously. And we'd have to have a lot of conversation about the safest way for these guys, and particularly here in the South where the heat is what it is, doing the right things for them, the recovery that's needed. But there's going to be a lot of, ongoing communication about that. I do think, to answer your question, I know that was a long answer, Luke, but I think 4 weeks was probably the shortest window that I've heard talked about so far that I would agree with.
Corey Smith.
Coach, going back to last week, obviously you talked a little bit about you and Sarah being able to spend more time together, but the 2 of you did donate the 100 lunches to Rex Hospital from Mose. What went into that? What made you want to donate specifically to Mose? And, is there anything else that you're planning on doing?
Yeah, Annabelle and Sarah talked about that and thought it was a great idea. And obviously Sarah's a nurse, not practicing, but has her license. And we know her sister's a nurse, sister-in-law is a nurse. So we know what those people are going through, and just thought it would be a nice way to help our community and help some people that are putting themselves out there for our safety every day. Have not talked about what's next, but there'll be ongoing conversations again as we try to figure out how long this is going to last. But it was a small act that we felt like was kind of personal that would help us back home.
Thank you.
You bet.
Alyssa,
Coach, I know you guys had limited practices this spring, but what did you take away from those few meetings, especially with a lot of new faces on the coaching staff?
Yeah. Seems like forever ago now. It was fun, first of all, just to be around the guys on the field, the coaches I'm talking about here, because I'd been in the office with them leading up to spring ball. And, as a head coach, you want to see how they function, their energy on the field. And, sometimes guys are a lot different on the grass than they are in the office. And it was fun to watch them, a lot of positive teaching. They interacted well together. As I've said many times, these guys, particularly on defense, and Tim Beck and John Garrison on offense, they have pre-existing coaching relationships at other schools. So it wasn't the same as 5 guys that have never been around each other out there. There's a lot of chemistry between Tony and Joe DeForest and Brian Mitchell, Brian and Charlie Wiles, as I already mentioned, John Garrison and Tim. And so that was great to see. The players had tremendous energy. They were hungry to be out there. I thought they worked well together. There was good progress being made in the installation. One of the focuses defensively was getting takeaways, and that was showing up. I thought we were making some nice plays on the football. The carryover, schematically, as they learned a new system on offense, you were starting to see it. There's obviously going to be mistakes because there's new terminology and new plays, new formations, things like that. But I thought that the guys handled it. Probably the best thing I saw was just the interaction between offense and defensive players and how they were competing, but also trying to help each other get better and in a competitive but cooperative manner. Because sometimes you can get a division, on your football team, particularly in spring and fall camp when you're trying to prove yourself against a teammate. And there's, as you know, you want to stay safe as you do that.
Mike Tover.
Morning, Coach. You talked a little bit about having that ACC coaches meeting, and I was just curious as to if you've reached out to peers or other coaches from around the state or maybe even the country to kind of, pick each other's brains about how to deal with this as far as coaching and interacting with players, and just if you've been doing any, advice giving or advice taking.
Yeah, I fielded some calls, taken some and made some. And so, I think that's one of the things, regardless of what you're dealing with, when you need an opinion, you reach out to guys in other conferences just to see what they're thinking or what their train of thought is. Dave Clausen is the head of our ACC coaches this year. He's the chair of our group. And so he's taken on the lion's share of that and has done a really nice job, speaking to Todd Berry, who's the president of the AFCA, and reaching out to other chairs of other conferences. And then we meet as an ACC group every week to kind of learn what Dave has found out and share what we've picked up from other places, and just to try to make sure we're not getting information that, each other don't have.
Aaron Beard.
Hey, Dave. You mentioned the longer guys are away, obviously it becomes kind of a different math maybe in getting ready for a season. I'm curious how much of a concern, or how are you guys handling the issues of guys are on their own, you're telling them, hey, you need to do this with how you train or how you eat or whatever, but you're still at the mercy of them being able to do it, whether by choice or by their situations around them.
Right. One thing I told them was this is an opportunity for us because every team has the same issue, and it's really going to be a player-led deal as far as are they going to get these things done or not. We can't hold them accountable for working out right now. And so all we can do is provide information. And so those guys, as I mentioned, have taken it on themselves to have accountability partners that they call every day and check on each other and make sure they're doing the work. We have an opportunity to leapfrog other people that don't do it the right way, and it has to be player-led. And so it's for me, I'm excited about it. It gets to see where we're at leadership-wise, just talking to our players. They feel great about the progress that guys are making. They're looking at each other's weights. They're doing all kinds of things. And, not every player has the same resources as you mentioned. So we have guys that are doing body weight only type things, you know, and then guys that have access to maybe their garage was their weight room in high school and they have the ability to lift weights. So going to have a variety of them. I think the biggest thing that we're trying to get these guys to do is just have a routine. You know, this isn't a vacation for them. This is still get up and work out and get your academic work done and try to eat to the best of your ability the right things. And so I do think it's going to teach a lot of independence amongst this group. And I think that's a good thing. You know, I think there's a lot of help at the college level. There's a lot of monitoring at the college level. And now they're having to monitor themselves. And bottom line is, you know, if you have a goal and you want it to be real, you have to make sure that you're living up to that with your actions day in and day out. This is going to show us who's really serious about it. You know, when they come back here, how out of shape or how in shape are you?
Sammy, you have another one?
Yeah, Dave, with the draft coming up next week, how do you feel like Laurel Murkison's talents translate to that next level? And for guys that didn't get a chance to have the pro day with you, have you guys done anything as a staff to kind of help getting them exposure to the NFL?
Starting with Laurel, I've heard a lot of positive reviews. You know, he did a great job at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. He's done really well in his interviews from what I've been told. You know, as far as where he fits, I think a lot of people are looking at him in 4-down fronts as the 3 technique. That can be a disruptive player there and get pass rush. You know, and in the 3-down teams, as he played for us last year, he can play the 4 technique. He can play a 5. So he's a versatile guy that's twitchy. And so, you know, those disruptive defenses that move their guys a lot and don't just eat up blocks, I think is where he's being looked at. And I do predict that he will be drafted. I think, you know, James has also gotten a lot of reviews as a outside linebacker in a 3-4 or an edge player on 3rd down. And people were blown away by the way he ran at the Combine, the way he interviews, which I know none of you guys are surprised by that. As far as exposure for the other guys, you know, I think it's really tough, and I feel for them. You know, they're missing out on that in-person piece. I know that the NFL, just talking to them, they're doing a lot of these type meetings like we're doing. And I'm not sure how they're evaluating guys, whether it's all film or whether they're getting players to film themselves working out on questions they may have had. But it's a tough situation. I feel for those guys. And, you know, especially with the XFL going under, there's not going to be a lot of places for them. And so a lot of guys are going to be probably going to be some steals in this thing free agent wise. And there's going to be some mistakes, you know, because they just don't have the same information. But they're going to have to rely a lot on their film evals, which for some of our guys, that's a good thing.
Brett Friedlander had a question.
Yeah, Dave, there have been several scenarios that have been floated out there in case the season can't start on time or not at all. How much, if any, input are coaches getting in that process? And one of the scenarios is a possible spring season. How would that be to manage?
Well, look, we need to play football. You know, I think that's the one thing that everybody recognizes. And from a financial standpoint in college athletics, for universities, and just for probably nation morale, you know, when that happens, I don't care. You know, I think whatever's best for the health of our athletes and for the country. I mean, you don't want to put them out there before all this stuff is taken care of. So, you know, whether it's delayed a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, I think it'd be a blessing for us to have these guys back and be able to work with them and get out there and compete. And I expect that to happen. I just don't know when. I'm hearing the same things you guys are, you know. I mean, the information changes a lot. And so whenever it does happen, we'll be ready.
Jonas, what do you have for Coach?
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good.
I know, obviously, spring was cut short, and you had a few early enrollees. Any of those guys kind of jump off the page and grab your attention in the limited time you saw them on the field?
You know, I'll just go from offense to defense. I thought Ben Finley did some good things. You know, he had some tough days as well, but was very gifted. Excited about the progress he'll be able to make. Those reps are going to be valuable for him. I thought on our offensive line, you know, both Sean and Ethan came in and were repping with the twos and getting a lot of work, and they're both going to be good players. They're tough, they're coachable, and did some good things. I thought, Devin Boykin really showed up, did a lot of positive things, very athletic defensive back. Excited about him. He's a guy that, could play early for us and probably will. Trying to think who I'm missing here. Porter Rooks really stood out at receiver. Porter had some nice catches, gets open, feels it, can adjust his body well. Jalen Coit's a really, really fast kid. He's going to have to get a little bigger in the weight room, and he's done so already, but has a lot of speed, which we expected to have when we recruited him. Am I missing anybody you wanted more information on there, Jonas?
No, that's fine. Thanks, Coach.
JB Ricks.
Hey, Coach. Thanks so much for taking out time for us, considering circumstances right now. My question for you is, how does this pandemic, this situation we're going through, how does it change the way you have to engage with your fans now? And because I know you probably had events and things like that scheduled that are now canceled or whatever that were related to the fans. How do you keep them engaged or whatnot, or keep that relationship with them through this pandemic?
Well, a lot of it's through social media, as you've seen. We've done some things that way, and that's really the only thing we can do right now. Our caravans have been put on hold, which is where we go out throughout the state and meet with our fans. So obviously we can't do that, and so a lot of this is going to be virtual and social media based. And whether it's me having an idea or Annabelle or someone from our recruiting team, anytime we come up with something that we think would be good for our fan base, we try to get it out there. But there's not a lot of content, you're pushing out things from the past right now. There's just not a lot that you can do in the present. My main focus, to be honest, is our players and coaches and their families, and just making sure that they have what they need and that we're keeping them day to day in a good routine.
Charlie Mickens, do you have a follow-up, you or Mark?
You're on mute, Charlie.
You're good now, I think.
Dave, I'm sure you probably saw the headlines out of Wake Forest yesterday. It's obviously an entirely different institution than what you have, but has Boo broached any conversations about taking voluntary pay cuts to offset an uncertain financial future?
None of these things like that have happened. We talk about our budget almost every conversation, and I think it's just a day-to-day thing for him and what he has to get done for our finances, and his talks obviously with Chancellor Woodson. And so as things progress, where we end up is where we end up. And obviously I know myself and all of our coaches and all of our workers understand these are crazy times.
I'm not seeing anybody else with their hand up. Does anybody have anything else?
I was just going to ask, and maybe I just missed something. Is there any kind of finality on Joshua Fed Jackson's situation, or did I just entirely miss it?
Which situation are you referring to?
Well, there was reports that he was going to transfer and then maybe go into the supplemental draft. So where are we on that stuff?
Yeah, Josh withdrew from classes to go after the supplemental draft, and that was kind of that was his departure from our team. Wanted to focus all his attention on that, and obviously with what's happened now, I don't know how that plays out for him, because there are no in-person workouts that these guys can go through, which would have been pretty important for him.
Jared Fialco.
Hey, Coach. Just wondering if, as you guys are adapting to this new process, if there's anything you foresee going forward in the future that will kind of maintain that you're going to be doing things that you do during this process forward from here on out, or if there's anything you'd like to see that's happening during this process that you hope continues once things return to normal.
Are you talking about the virtual aspect of this, or
anything really that you've seen that you guys have had to adapt to that you would like to see, or that you think will change going forward?
That's a good question, Jared. I don't really know what will continue. I think all of us are starving for being around our guys right now. Obviously, this technology is very, very useful, particularly when you're thinking about kids maybe that you've signed. Moving forward, being able to do these types of things with them until they get on your campus. Maybe those are things we can do within the rules. I'm not sure what they'll allow us to do that way, but in the past, you just call and check on guys. Now maybe it's more virtual, maybe like this, where you can teach things to them if allowed. I would assume a lot of people in the country now understand how to use Zoom. And so they give you more of a platform to have more of these meetings with boosters that are long distance as opposed to some of the trips and drives and things that you have to do. But I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about it.
Sammy Batten.
Yeah, Dave, just finally on the quarterback situation. I guess Devin finished the season as your starter, but when you get to preseason camp, you consider that a completely wide open situation, or does he go in as your number one?
No, Devin will be our starter. And, like I said multiple times now, it's his job to lose. And I know he's excited about the opportunity to grow from where he was. I know Bailey wants to be a better player than he was and will compete his butt off to do so. I was excited about the progress he was making. And then you have two young guys, Ty and Ben, that are just trying to learn the offense right now. And so really you have two guys that have played significant reps that we're counting on, and two young guys that we want to see get better and that have great ability and leadership tools. So I like where we're at. We just need the opportunity to coach them now, and I think that's the biggest thing moving forward. Reps are so valuable. And every rep counts. It's something I preach to our players. And until we can get back on the grass with them, it's kind of a standstill conversation.
Is there anybody else? Oh, Tim Peeler is waving his hand. Tim?
Coach, you talked about the difficulties of staying in physical shape and all the things that you have to do there and holding your players accountable. Can you talk a little bit about what challenges there have been in doing online classes and making sure everybody's keeping up with academic work, or people having challenges in terms of laptops, accessibility, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, some of our guys are from the country, and so not always being able to have Wi-Fi has been an issue for some of them, because obviously all the schooling now requires the internet connection and Wi-Fi and hotspots and all the things that go with it. We have had to ship some laptops to some guys that did not have them, and so that's part of what we've had to do. Our academic staff and our coaches have done a phenomenal job, of just trying to help these guys get in routines. And, I think they deserve a lot of credit in the academic center for the amount of work that's gone into this, because obviously none of them are prepared for this to be how we tutor or how we stay in contact with our athletes. But I guess, until we see the results of it, it's hard to really give you how it's going. I will tell you that there's a tremendous amount of work that's going on. And I think the guys, after they got through the first week, which was pretty challenging, because none of them had done Zoom, now it's like secondhand to them. But that's how they're living, is going through these meetings and these tutoring sessions and counseling sessions and peer mentors and all the things they have to do, their lectures, and then turning their work in on time. So there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of accounting that's going into this, making sure that things are done and knowing when guys are supposed to turn in things and making sure they're doing it the right way.
How's your homeschooling going with your three boys?
Pretty good. I was pretty impressed the way they jumped into it. And, I don't know how challenging it's been, to be honest. I'm thinking maybe a lot of you are understanding where I'm coming from. I think the teachers are giving them work, but not crushing them either with what they need to get done. But it's gone well. They miss their friends. It's funny to hear your kids talk about missing school, because that's not how it was in my house, but that's how it is now. They miss the interaction daily.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Is there anybody else? I'm looking for anybody jumping up and down, or nobody's hands raised in Zoom. So I appreciate everybody. Coach, I appreciate you. Y'all
Thanks,
stay-
Bill.
Thank you guys. Hope you're all good.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Coach.
Appreciate
Thanks
your
for coming
time. Take care.